Welcome to another episode of AlphaStreet Podcast series. Today, we have with us Gaurav Goyal, the National Head of Sales and Marketing at Canada Robeco Mutual Fund. Now, Gaurav has spent over 22 years in financial services with experience across banking, insurance, capital markets, and mutual funds. And he has seen multiple market cycles from very close quarters. He has worked with some of the leading names in the industry and today plays a key role in shaping how investors engage with mutual funds in India. Gaurav, great to have you with us today.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk to you and to your investors.
Gaurav, I want to start with your journey first. Now, you have had exposure across many segments of financial services, but you chose to build a large part of your career in mutual funds. If I were to ask you what drew you personally to the MF industry and what continues to excite you about it even today?
Oh, certainly. No, I think as you rightly said, I've been fortunate to join the financial services after my MBA. Got an opportunity to work across banking, insurance, capital market. And of course, I think love with mutual funds, I would say, when you look at in terms of the industry, of course, it's one of the fastest growing industry. So when you look at in terms of the AUM, of course, in the last 10 years, our AUM is more than four times. If you look at the industry in terms of the number of new folios which are coming in, the folios are more than 5x. And you look at that SIP revolution, which has just begun. So if you look at 10 years back and today, the kind of flows which are there, it is already eight times. And this is just a beginning. So one part is when you look at in terms of the industry, I think the growth element of that industry is very, very intact, and it's one of the fastest growing industry. So it make your letter leaning against the right wall. The second part, I think when you look at while there is so much growth which is happening, but still when you look at from an opportunity perspective, still in India, they are only 10% of the households. If you look at in terms of household as a percentage, those who are investing out of their financial, it is just 10%. When you look at in terms of the penetration of the individual investors, we are just about less than 6 crores in terms of the PAN, individual unique PAN, which are there in India. So with a population of 140 crores, the largest populous country, the penetration is just less than 3%. When you look at it in terms of many metrics, AUM to GDP ratio, second again, we are 18, 19%. So there is a huge, headroom which is there in terms of the growth opportunity which is there. So while we have been growing very fast, but there is a huge opportunity as far as growth is concerned. So that really excites you because there's so much to do, and as far as mutual fund is concerned. The third aspect, personally, which really excites me, is also the kind of learning opportunities which are there. So when you're working and it's a knowledge-based industry, when you work, you learn so much from the ecosystem. Correct. You learn from your peers, competition. You learn from your own organization, the kind of whether it is in terms of investment team, research teams, or other functions. You learn from your partners, the entire ecosystem. And I am so excited because when I go and travel, and in this job, I'm very fortunate that I get an opportunity to actually travel across the country and meet our partners and investors, and so much of learning. Okay, with when you see in terms of how they're working, what kind of means learnings which they are acquiring and they're applying. So I think those are it's a learning machine every day being in mutual fund, and markets being so dynamic. You have to be really on the top of what's happening, and at least be on there. So I think that is something which is very, very exciting. And the fourth aspect which I would say is in terms of the opportunity to contribute, because in your role when you meet your investors, and we do massive investor education programs, we meet our investors, we meet our partners, and the kind of conversation which you do, so in some way you are contributing to the society when any with all the empowerment which you are doing with all those investors, with your knowledge, the behavioral aspect which you are sharing. So I think combination of all this, whether it is in terms of growth, whether it is in terms of what you are contributing, the learning, and what you're contributing, I think it makes it very, very exciting for anybody to be in love with the mutual fund industry.
Very, very interesting. Gaurav, when we zoom out and look at India's long term growth story,
Yeah.
mutual funds are often talked about as a very simple yet powerful way for retail investors to participate. You mentioned about investor education. Now,
Yes.
what do you think mutual funds are Why do you think mutual funds are specifically well suited for investors looking to benefit from India's economic growth?
Oh, certainly yes. Because one is today, I think there is no doubt that the biggest story is India in terms of the wealth. It's not only about Amrit Kal as a GDP growth, but I think the kind of wealth creation opportunity which is going to emerge in India for the next in this entire period is going to be tremendous. Means we would have never seen that kind of growth which can happen as far as the wealth creation is concerned for investors. Now, when you look at in terms of mutual fund and what are the vehicles which are available, so of course, when you look at in terms of the entire household, uh, what kind of product investors would be looking at, correct? And I think I would just quote there was a recent survey which was done by SEBI and which was in terms of the household, what what kind of awareness they have. So while the awareness about the financial products is about more than 60%, when you look at in terms of the adoption is just about 10%, correct? So there is a huge gap between awareness and adoption. So that's one challenge. Now, why it is there? And there are some barriers. Okay, what are the barriers to the investment? And they have done that study also. And some of the barriers which they talked about, which came out as part of the survey, was that investors are looking at a simple product, and a lot of financial product they find it very complex. They are looking at transparent products. They are looking at easy to kind of transact kind of product. They are looking at trustworthy products. Now, if you put all these things together in mutual fund, you will find that okay, all those barriers of investment which investors are talking about, mutual fund is a vehicle that okay, which is low entry barrier. You can invest right from 100 rupees to 1 crore to 100 crores, whatever you want to invest in. Correct. So in a way, it is a democratization of the entire investment. If you look at any vehicle which has been providing is mutual fund. Secondly, when you look at in terms of transparency, we have a daily NAV. Correct. So it's so transparent. There is no other product apart from the mutual fund which is so transparent that okay, you have a daily NAV of it. Third is you have a monthly disclosure of where those investments are. So you have a disclosure at the highest level. When you look at in terms of liquidity, you have a liquidity. Investors can redeem at any point of time. Correct. So they have a liquidity, they have a transparency. There are no entry barriers because you can invest as low as 100 rupees, as you can invest as much as 100 crores or 200 crores, whatever it may be. Correct. So I think when you look at in terms of the checklist from an investor perspective, of if they have to board any vehicle to create the wealth creation, I think mutual fund ticks all the tick boxes. So and that's how that's the reason that okay, it is gaining popularity, and it is just the beginning. Because as we said that it is just about less than 6 crores of unique pan or investors which are there. So it is just a beginning, and it has all the potential to really go to those phases. Because when you look at the developed markets, and when you look at the metrics in terms of the household penetration, or when you look at the metrics of EM to GDP, they are far far higher than us. So we have a huge opportunity for us to grow.
Gaurav, interesting you mentioned the daily NAV disclosures and how even 100 rupees. But the other side of the coin, based on some interactions I've had, is despite all these awareness, many investors still struggle to stay invested during these volatile phases because they keep track of it. So, from a behavioral finance perspective, if I were to ask you, what do you think really holds investors back, and how can they overcome these emotional hurdles?
So, okay, and if you look at, yeah, so while we talk about the growth, and as you rightly pointed out, I think this is the biggest challenge, correct? When you look at in terms of, while on one side we have new SIP accounts which are coming in, but there is another side of the story of that is that, okay, number of SIP accounts which are getting stopped, pause is also increasing, correct? And when you look at in terms of the net SIP accreditation, is going down, and that's a reality, and that's really exactly is the challenge. And as you rightly said, it's a behavioral challenge. So what I think when you look at and there's a lot of work which as an industry we have to do it together. From an investor behavior perspective, I think it is like there are two behaviors. One is love at first sight, okay, which is happening, which is basically investors when they just look at the last 1 year return and they invest in. And they look at in terms of okay, which is the new NF when they invest in, which is the new theme, new fashion, a new narrative, okay, and they invest in. So it is like a love at first sight. And then when they see some kind of volatility, which is like a divorce at the first fight, okay, which is happening, and then they stop already. So these are two investor behaviors definitely as an industry and the entire ecosystem, whether it is manufacturer, partners, entities like you who are actually educating investors, empowering investors. I think we all have to work together and handhold all our investors, educate all our, empower all our investors. That when you look at in terms of the entire equation of wealth creation, and I think all of us, I also studied that in our schools, which is the power of compounding. And you will remember that the formula is amount is equal to principal 1 plus r upon 100 raised to power n. Now there are three variables in it. Okay, one is amount, which is basically your wealth creation. Okay, which is an output. Okay, but what is going into the input? So one is your principal. Okay, the second is in terms of your R, which is return, and N is basically the time, which you are spending. The entire wealth creation, and one of my learning is that often a lot of importance has been given to R, while the most important ingredient in terms of the wealth creation is actually the N. Okay, which is in terms of how much time you are investing. So it is all about not timing the market, but the time you are investing into the market, which is very, very important. And therefore, if anybody has to create wealth as far as the financial markets are concerned and these markets are concerned, it is only the time which you are spending in the market which will create that. And that's how the power of compounding will work. Means people don't, I'll just give you an example. Means people don't understand the power of compounding in that way. Just a 12% return CAGR return. What does it mean? It means that every 6 years of your wealth is getting doubled. Correct. So it's so powerful, and if you do it, continuously for years and for multiple years, your wealth will compound. Now, of course, I think there are some nudges which we can create. So, how do we really help the investors on? I think to me and at Canara Robeco, one of the things which we have been talking about is goal-based investment, goal-based SIP. So, how do you label? Because when I look at in terms of 10 crore SIPs which are there today in the industry, these are 10 crore goals. They are investors, those who have some aspirations, whether it is their child marriage or their dream car or retirement or intergeneration goals, whatever their goals are, short term, long term, medium term. These are goals. These are aspirations. Now, can we label them? And if we label those goals, if it is for my child education, we all are emotional creatures, correct? And definitely, I think one of the things is that okay, if we really create that bonding between that goal for the investors, I think they will continue to stay invested. They will complete their journey. The biggest challenge is that okay, they're not completing their journey because they are focusing on they are focusing on NAV. Okay, while the focus should be in terms of how many units I'm accumulating.
Okay.
The focus should be in terms of how I should need to stay invested, and they need to be married to the goals. They need to be attached to those goals. So if we can create some kind of structure where as an industry, we are then talking about in terms of the returns. If you can talk about in terms of what are your goals, where are you on that journey? I think if the conversations will change, the behavior will also change, and we have to change that entire lens of the investment from daily tracking of NEV, daily movement of NAV, to really the goals in investments.
Interesting, very interesting perspective. Shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about the younger and first time investors per se, right? From your vantage point, what is the most common personal finance mistake you see them making today? And what lessons should they ideally learn from such an early stage in their investing journey?
So one is, of course, when you look at in terms of the younger generation, and I'm just relating. I think there is an equation. You have whether you earn income from salary or from your business. Now you earn, let's say, 100 rupees. Now out of that 100 rupees, okay, what is your equation? Either if you are saying that I'm going to spend that entire 100 rupees, or in some cases, when I in terms of youngsters, what I'm seeing also that the spending is 150 rupees, where the income is 100 rupees. So I think that is one of the biggest mistakes which they're doing. So income minus investment, and then what is left is that okay, if you're allocating for your spending, I think that is something which is going to create magic as far as their wealth creation is concerned. It's going to change, in terms of their entire experience of around, their relationship with money, if I can say with that. So I think that equation needs to change. Right now, what I see is in terms of the mistake which a lot of youngsters are doing is their spending is higher than their income. And when you actually leverage and consume, and consumption for what kind of asset? So if it is, for that, the latest phone which is coming in, and I'm actually paying, I'm leveraging for it. I think that's not the right behavior which can help them in terms of building up the wealth. So they have to change their entire equation of, uh, they have to deduct first what is in terms of their investments, and when they allocate their investing from their earning, what is left is that they have to work out in terms of their spending. If they just change this behavior, I think it will be, they will enjoy their entire this entire journey of wealth creation for the next 20, 25, 30 years.
Interesting. You certainly mentioned don't have instant gratification, have delayed gratification. So, I mean, with all the social media noise, I know it's very tough for that generation. On the same line, over the last so many years, you have personally seen how investor participation and awareness in India, especially, have clearly evolved as we, began our conversation. How have you seen this transformation firsthand? And if I were to ask you, what initiatives has Canara Robeco taken to strengthen this financial awareness beyond that 6 crore? And what kind of investor educations across the country have you done?
Sure. So I'll just share, two aspects. One is in terms of, as you rightly said, from an investor education perspective, and second is from a behavioral, aspect. How can we have we created some kind of nudge and tool to help them? So one part from an investor education, I think this year I can say that it is like a year of initiative for us at Canada Robeco. There are multiple initiatives which we had taken to really empower all the investors to know about, more mutual fund and how they can adopt mutual fund as a solution rather than, just a product. One part is when you look at most of the awareness as far as mutual fund is regarding SIP, okay, which is the 1S. So at Canada Robeco, what we have taken the initiative is to talk about the 3S, and it is a very, very powerful. So it is not only mutual fund sahi hai, SIP sahi hai, but 3S sahi hai. And what does it mean? Okay, it means SIP, okay, which is definitely a very, very important tool, and it has democratized the entire wealth creation opportunity for our investors, as we discussed, because anybody can participate in it. The second part is STP, which we call as a systematic transfer plan. And there, if you look at in terms of the investor behavior and where the opportunity is, still only, as I said, that from the household savings perspective, it is just about 10% that which is getting invested in mutual fund. So there is still 90% of that which is not invested in mutual fund, and there is a huge opportunity if you look at in terms of whether it is banking deposit or other financial assets and physical assets which are there. Now, when you look at and what they're looking at, for example, when you talk about the traditional methods of investing, they're looking at maybe stability, those kind of aspect, and low volatility as far as those are concerned. Now, if you look at debt funds, they all provide those kind of solutions. Correct. So you can invest in the fixed income fund, and means today there are solutions which are available. Right, means if the investor wants to invest only for one day, he can invest in overnight fund. So mutual fund has the entire basket of solutions, right from overnight fund, liquid funds to a host of fixed income funds, hybrid funds, and equity funds. So we are promoting STP because that is also very, very important aspect of the way the investors can actually allocate their investments, and also in enter into equity market through a staggered way. So fixed income will give them stability, and at the same time, even just whatever appreciation which they are getting from the fixed income, if they invest into equity, it creates a huge difference in their outcomes over a longer period of time. The third is in terms of SWP. I think if you look at in terms of one of the requirement is also that as investors we need regular cash flows. Correct. How many people have retired pension which is coming in from the government? Means we have a large population, large number of individuals, those who require regular cash flows. They are business people, those who they have a irregular business income, they require regular cash flow. Right? Senior citizens, they require regular cash flow, and mutual fund can provide them in a very tax efficient way. And those are SWP solutions, which are systematic withdrawal plans. So one part from our investor education team and initiative is promoting that SAE, correct? SIP, SPP, and SWP. So look at mutual fund solutions from a holistic perspective because all your needs can be catered through. The second part which we took is, some of the initiative. For example, we tied up with a leading publication, and every week we had various articles coming in terms of we created a property called Mr. Mutual Fund, Mr. Investor, Miss Investor. And, those were the engaging articles which used to come every week. And we are again, going to start that initiative again. So this year, that was another important initiative. Another initiative which we took was very interesting and which was Nivesh Bus Yatra. And that Nivesh Plus Yatra actually, we covered more than 10 states this year, more than 50 cities, and more than 25,000 investors through those investor education Bus Yatra. So there were buses which were going to from one town to another town. In one city, they were stopping at different places. They have towns and interacting with the investors. Right from urban to rural households, we were reaching out to these Nivesh Plus Yatra because it gives you much more length to cover when you use this kind of method. So I think that innovation really helped us to reach out, talk about mutual funds in a different and unique way. Another initiative, an interesting initiative, what we said, okay, while India is a country, but India is a continent. If you look at the kind of diversity which we have, the kind of language diversity which we have. So while we have been working on in terms of vernacular content and vernacular languages, those things which we took, but we said, what is that universal language? We said music is a universal language which people understand all across the geographies. It goes beyond the languages. And we actually promoted so we created a 3 years anthem, which is SIP, STP, and SWP anthem. I'm sure if you get
Okay, check.
the YouTube and you can see it. And I'm very pleased to share with you, we have more than 1 crore views on that, correct? And it is only through one channel. And then we have actually taken it to our partners, the partners have shared with the investors. So from a reach perspective, using music as as a language and using music for our institution really helped us to reach out to a very, very large base in a very innovative way. And in a, we could talk to them in a language which we could understand. And second is that, okay, it could cut through the entire generation, and particularly the young generation, to talk about, how all these things. And various other initiatives. So in terms of content, we created some interesting content, some games which we created so that, people, investors can engage in a very engaging way and, can understand it. So host of initiatives we took as far as the investor education are concerned. And, it is very satisfying that we could contribute to that part and large number of going on ground events. So it was a combination of in collaboration with media, with digital side, then our Nivesh Plus Yatra on ground investor education campaign. It's a combination of all that. Apart from it, I think another initiative from since you mentioned about the behavioral aspects for all our investors and partners is we introduced the goal SIP. Now this goal SIP is because what realizes that today investors are doing when they're doing SIP, they have some goals. They have some, aspiration.
Mm.
Be anything. There could be goals and family goals which are put there. And we said, can we provide, uh, can we empower an investor to name those goals first and personalize? So if it is, let's say you are starting your SIP and you say it is for RC's Red Ferrari. Okay, you can actually name your goal. And that goal will be captured by us in terms of, and when the account statement is coming to the investor, it will talk about the goal name is RC Ferrari, the goal amount is 1 crore, uh, the SIP is 10,000 rupees a month, the current value is maybe 15 lakhs, so continue your goal. And you can just visualize it if it is for your child education, if it is for your child marriage, it is for your their dream home, or maybe, for your retirement. I think there will be an emotional attachment. So what we are trying to create is a Dil Ka Rishta, okay, with those goals. The moment that Dil Ka Rishta gets created, you stay committed to those goals. And then you don't worry about the noise which is happening, that drawdown of 5% which happened in the market last week, and, what kind of buying and selling which is happening and what's happening in the market. So you actually change that entire conversation. And the entire lens of looking at the entire portfolio is that where I am in my journey as far as my goal is concerned. Correct. And that really helps from a behavioral aspect. So that we are very proud to share with you that we launched that Goal SIP initiative for our investors and partners using it. So we worked with our RTA and we developed that entire system with our RTA. So it's been enabled digitally. You can now do it digitally. We also work with our exchange platforms, whether it is NSE, BSE, MFU, and we created, work with them and then provided their entire solution. So today, that entire ecosystem is enabled and integrated. So as an investor, I can initiate that goal SIP digitally, whether it is on our platform or whether through exchange platforms. It has been captured through RTA. It has been captured through the account statement when the investor is getting. So we have closed that entire loop in that way, and that is one initiative I would say a unique initiative in the industry from our side, which is focused more on, which I said, the behavioral aspect and nudge for the investors to help them stay.
Very, very interesting. And आपके मुंह पे घी शक्कर, my red Ferrari probably is down the road. दिल का रिश्ता तो बना ही लिया. Very
We
interesting. And
started
three,
it already.
and three S's. Normally we only hear people talking about SIP, but systematic withdrawal plan, transfer plan from debt to equity. Very interesting. Finally, Gaurav, before I let you go, drawing from your experience across market cycles and various leadership roles, if I were to ask you what are the key takeaways or let's call it guiding principles you would like my listeners who are also investors to keep in mind as they build their long term wealth, maybe for their red Ferrari, what would it be?
So yeah, and I think when you have asked this question, I'm just recollecting. I'll just like to share one personal anecdote. And when I moved to Bombay from Delhi, and then I still remember, and the day is in front of my eyes. And I came in here, and it was many years back. I still remember I was standing at Borivali station to board the train, and I would admit that I could not. So I was trying to board a fast train, and when the train used to come in, I said, "Okay, let the crowd go in, and I'll go into the next train." And what I realized is that okay, I cannot board that fast because I just wanted to board that fast train. And then somebody told me there that okay, there is a slow train also. Okay, why don't you where you want to go? I said I want to go to Churchgate. He said there is a slow train also where I think you can board it and you will be home. And I boarded that. Okay, I reached Churchgate. One of the learning which is important is very important to board the train. Okay, so don't get into that. I wanted to get into the fastest train. Okay, so there are enough studies when you wanted to create an instant wealth creation. SEBI has also done that study. 9 out of 10 investors in FNO have actually lost money. Correct. So it is important to board the train. Don't get into that. I want to board the fastest train. So as long as you are boarding the train, you will reach your destination. So today, in terms of the wealth creation, we know that if the way if India is going to become a $30 trillion economy, uh, there is a massive wealth creation opportunity which is going to happen. Correct. As far as the next 20 years, 30 years are concerned, uh, even if when you look at in terms of the last 25 years, 12-13% kind of compounding, which means every 6 years your money is getting doubled, and the opportunity before us, which is there for the next 2 decades, is tremendous. And so when the GDP is going to increase, uh, we are going to become a $30 trillion massive wealth creation opportunity is happening. Board the train. Okay, for investor, it is very important to board the train. Don't worry about in terms of in market. You will always have a reason why not to invest. You will always have a reason why not to board that train because there is so much of volatility which is being there. But as we all know, even if you go and take an ECG of yours, if it is a straight line, that means you are dead. Correct. So
Yes.
if it you know like a volatile, we should be happy about it. So if they are drawdown, so that is one learning that board the train. The second is in terms of whenever there is a volatility in the market and whenever there is a drawdown, celebrate those drawdowns. When I'm saying celebrate those drawdown means those are the times to actually acquire more units. So become a unit collector. Okay, we need to collect the number of units. So we don't. It is not about, and one of the things which we I keep on sharing with all our partners is that very important that more than AUM, it is important what is the goals under management, what you have. Correct. So from my investor perspective, also what is very important is not to that whether my wealth is 1 crore or 10 lakhs. Can we look at in terms of whether I am a number unit millionaire or not, whether I am a crorepati, I have 1 crore of units or not, or whatever the goals may be. So the goal should be in terms of the number of units and not in terms of amount. So that is another learning. So all these drawdowns, let's celebrate those drawdowns, let's celebrate that volatility, because those are the times. Because when you look at from a long term perspective, those are the opportunities where you can acquire. And the third learning, which definitely I would like to share, is in terms of the power of compounding. And as I said, that when you look at the entire compounding, uh, you know, we all have studied that in school. I also studied that in school. But let me admit to you, I only realized the application of that when I joined the industry, when I have seen it and I have experienced it. So it is very important what you have understood to see that and then to experience it, and then you will see that power of compounding. So, and in that power of compounding, I think there are too much emphasis in terms of R, and that is something which is completely out of control. So one of the learning is focus on your controllables, and what is in your control in your control is what you can put in. So invest much more. If you are investing just 10% of what your household saving is, okay, then we need to rethink that, okay, how I can make that 10% to 20%, how can I can make the 20% to 30%, because that will have a substantial impact on your overall wealth creation. The second part is, which is in my control, is in terms of N. So the moment, I say that, okay, as I'm doing this compounding for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, your entire, kind of impact it can have, the power of compounding, it's going to be tremendous. And that's the reason that, okay, it is called Eighth Wonder of the World by Albert Einstein, because that is something which we have to believe and see in it. And if we experience it, then definitely it is one way that we all can achieve our, financial freedom to it. So I think these are some of unique.
Excellent, excellent takeaways, Gaurav. Believe in the magic of compounding. Celebrate volatility. I'm hearing it for the first time. Actually, you should celebrate volatility and don't miss the trade. Board the trade. Don't
Both them.
procrastinate.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Excellent.
enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey too.
You don't have to, kind of, so whenever, for example, and I'm another corollary which I'm just, kind of remembering and sharing, thought to share with you. For example, if you are in aircraft, correct, and if you are flying and it is a turbulent weather, what is the announcement which happens? The announcement happens is that, please tighten your seat belts, correct, and, please have trust on the pilot, because there is, an experienced person. So we don't need to action because, there is a drawdown of 5%, or there is a drop of, the markets are down, or there is a volatility, or there is some kind of global events are there. They are experienced in mutual fund. You have experienced professional fund managers, those who are your pilots, correct? So have trust on the pilots. In fact, at the time of volatility, please sit tight. You don't jump out of the aircraft, correct? So don't redeem. Okay, stay invested, and that's how you will create wealth.
Wonderful, wonderful anecdote to end this wonderful conversation, Gaurav. I personally enjoyed it, and I'm sure my listeners are going to have a lot of takeaways from this. It's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you, and I look forward to more such sessions in the future.
Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity and sharing our perspective. Thank you very much.